A compelling case can be made that Signs, from 2002, functions as an indirect psychological response to the collective trauma America experienced after September 11th, 2001. Even though the film never references terrorism explicitly, instead it processes that trauma symbolically through fear, uncertainty, loss of faith, and the slow reconstruction of meaning in a suddenly hostile world. 1. An enemy that is everywhere and nowhere. After 9/11, Americans faced a new kind of fear, an invisible, unpredictable threat that could appear anywhere without warning. Signs mirrors this anxiety through its depiction of the alien presence. The invaders are never fully understood, rarely seen, and often sensed only through static, shadows, noises, and fragmented images, much like the early disorienting media coverage of terrorism. The film's most iconic scare occurs via a grainy television broadcast from a child's birthday party. This moment parallels how Americans first encountered 9/11, not directly, but through screens, repetition, and shocking footage that felt unreal, yet deeply personal. The fear does not come from spectacle, but from realization. This is happening, and it could happen here. 2. Rural America is no longer safe. Before 9/11, American cinema often treated rural or domestic spaces as refuges from global danger. Signs systematically dismantles that illusion. The Hess family farm, open fields, cornrows, wide skies, becomes a place of vulnerability rather than safety. This reflects the post-9/11 collapse of geographic innocence. Oceans, borders, and distance no longer guaranteed protection. The aliens don't attack cities alone. They appear in backyards, barns, and children's bedrooms, reinforcing the idea that no space is exempt from threat. 3. A nation's crisis of faith. At its emotional core, Signs is about a crisis of belief. Graham Hess is a former priest who has lost his faith after the sudden death of his wife, an event that feels arbitrary, cruel, and meaningless. This mirrors the spiritual shock many Americans experienced after 9/11, when long-standing assumptions about moral order, divine protection, or national destiny were shaken. The central question of the film, is this all random or is there purpose hidden in suffering, was one many people were asking in the early 2000s. The film never argues for blind faith. Instead, it dramatizes a painful process of deciding whether meaning can still exist after catastrophe. 4. The death that couldn't be stopped. Colleen Hess's death is especially telling. She is killed not by an alien or a villain, but by a freak accident involving a careless driver. This randomness echoes the way 9/11 felt to many. People simply going to work, boarding a plane, or standing in a building when the unthinkable occurred. Her final words, seemingly incoherent at first, later become essential to survival. This reframing of trauma aligns with how post-9/11 narratives often sought meaning in loss, sacrifice, and hindsight. Pain becomes survivable only when it can be integrated into a larger story. 5. Fear, family, and the return to the home. Rather than focusing on military response or large-scale destruction, Signs narrows its scope to one family barricaded inside a house, listening, waiting, bracing. This mirrors the emotional posture of many Americans after 9/11, turning inward, protecting loved ones, stockpiling resources, watching the news late into the night. The film suggests that the most human response to terror is not dominance or revenge, but connection. Holding your children, reconciling with your brother, choosing to believe that life is still worth defending. Water as a symbol of purification and survival. The alien's fatal weakness, water, can be read symbolically rather than literally. Water has long represented cleansing, baptism, and renewal. In Signs, ordinary glasses of water scattered throughout the house become instruments of survival. This suggests that everyday human rituals and beliefs, not advanced weaponry, are what ultimately protect us. In a post-9/11 context, this reads as a rejection of pure spectacle and force, an affirmation of small, human-scale meaning in the face of overwhelming fear. Conclusion. Signs is not a film about 9/11 in any literal sense, but it is deeply of the moment in which it was made. It captures the psychological atmosphere of early 2000s America, fear without clarity, loss without explanation, and a desperate need to believe that chaos is not the final word. By transforming national trauma into a quiet domestic story about faith, fear, and family, Signs becomes less an alien invasion movie and more a cinematic meditation on what it felt like to be American in the shadow of September 11th, when the world no longer felt safe, and belief itself had to be relearned.